Hello everybody, welcome to another Infinity Kingdom guide. For this one we are going to have a look at the SvS seasons. The Legion of Frostborne is, as you all probably know, the ultimate competition between the infinite worlds of Infinity Kingdom. Here servers are merged together and thrown into battle, fighting for the capital of Mir and an ultimate victory. It's an opportunity for players of all sizes to get some battle scars, and the fights themselves have some major rewards that are crucial to all players and all players' growth. So for this video we're gonna have a look at all of the different seasons, the seasonal structures, and the rewards. The rewards are come from two different types. There are two different types of rewards. There are rewards from the seasonal shop, where you exchange cold coin currency earned throughout the SvS season for some Tower Knowledge skills, some Dragon Essences, and some other stuff. You're probably gonna bank the first ones, but have a look at the video and see how the rewards progress. The second types of rewards are from the ancient chests, the loot boxes, which you can't purchase those for cold coin, but you shouldn't. You should go for gems on those. We're gonna have a look at what is in each one of those as well. With every SvS season, you're gonna get new rewards in both the ancient chests and in the vendor shop. Moreover, for the first 3 seasons, you're gonna unlock new immortals in your King of Hill progression, and every season also has 2 unique immortals that are gonna be released in the ancient chests, and which will be available for purchase in the bundle shop after the season has ended. Let's begin with season 1. That's the very first season of Legion of Frostborne of SvS, server versus server. Once your server reaches 90 days maturity, you will begin the matchmaking stage and eventually be dropped into the world of the frozen Legion of Frostborne, where you battle out against other servers. To begin with, this very first season, you are only going to have one new Tower of Knowledge skill to unlock, one ability stone to get through the shop. That will be the Snipe ability stones. These are going to be available in season 1, as well as some Philosopher stones and territorial reports. For most of you out there, you should probably be banking cold currency from season 1. I would recommend you to be looking for enough cold currency to actually max a single skill. But of course, if you are going for Snipe as your first Tower Knowledge skill, then you can go for that already at season 1. For the ancient remnant chests, you will be able to also get Snipe ability stones, but also full coverage ability stones. The second and only other Tower Knowledge skill available in these chests for season 1. Furthermore, you're gonna get the Mehmet Immortal Fragments and Seon Fragments. Importantly, those immortals are gonna be unlocked after season 1. So looking at these two Tower Knowledge skills first, Snipe is quite powerful. For this guide, I'm gonna go through the new additions and to kind of explain just shortly what is the skill. But Sniper is a very powerful skill. It works especially well for strong backline pressure setups and AoE setups, because the skill's proc damage attacks the furthest enemy from you, meaning that it is secure backline damage and amazing for those kind of builds. Works well on full Whale Holy, Genghis Khans, Atalantas, Bathories, that kind of thing. Full coverage is obviously a lot harder to get since it's only from the ancient chests. That means that you're probably not going to get it finished anytime soon. It's going to take a long time, but it is a decent skill for certain setups. If you are running a fire team, then I would encourage you to eventually get this skill. You can run it with quite high success on Hippolyta for for quite a lot of damage in a crit regen build. That being said, it is a solid skill, but one that should be paired with an energy regen build, and probably not one of the tower knowledge skills that you want to really max out and wheel for. With regards to the immortals from this season 1 SvS, you're gonna get Seon, as I said. That's probably the main reward of this entire season. She's a very, very powerful immortal and by far the best reward from season 1. She makes fire main incredibly strong, well, any fire team incredibly strong. She can also work in a secondary team if you're doing that kind of thing, but of course you can't do a dual mage fire if that's your thing. But for main marches, Seon is a powerful build, and with her, fire can compete with the biggest of whales. An absolute S tier immortal and amongst the best in the game. Mehmet, on the other side, is completely useless. He's available in season 1 and in the bundles afterwards, but he's not very good. He reads as sort of an Earth Peter and should be pretty good, but he really has no use in an Earth setup because we have other immortals that are just plain and simple better. For King of the Hill progression, the very first SvS is gonna unlock 2 new immortals for your King of the Hill rotation. The roster for King of the Hill is slowly gonna fill out as you progress through the different seasons. After finishing season 1, you're gonna unlock Dido and Cyrus in King of the Hill. Dido's very, very good for water setups, pumping Merlin's damage and also defending against those pesky physical damage teams. She really enables a water march that can actually compete with Earths and with Holies if you whale a bit. Cyrus shouldn't be ignored, but personally I don't think he's good enough. I think that Cyrus is an interesting immortal, and I have seen some players swear to him and really, for if you're running a fire main march, then there are builds out there where Cyrus performs rather well, but in general I'm not too keen on him, since I prefer immortals Seon and Wu, or a dual mage fire. So that was season 1. Moving on to the season 2 rewards. Season 2 will obviously begin after season 1 has ended, and you're entering sort of a timeout phase where migration opens up, and then another matchmaking phase, and then we have season 2. In season 2's cold coin currency shop, you're also going to have Snipe. As you will notice throughout this video, each season adds an additional reward, meaning that Snipe is going to be continuously there throughout all of the seasons. But you also get the new skill, which is Storm Eye. Furthermore, for Ancient Remnant loot boxes, you are also still going to find Snipe and full coverage in there, but you have the new Storm Eye ability as well as Siren's Gaze ability stones. For Immortals, we are unlocking Ragnar and Matilda, also in these Ancient Remnants and in bundle shops after the season has ended. For the, I'm not going to go over Sniper again, and these skills that we covered in season 1, I'm going to just focus on the new ones. So Storm Eye. Storm Eye is available, as I said, from the shop for cold coin currency. It's a magic skill that works very well in mage dependent setups. It's a good skill if you want to use more than one mage. However, and that should be emphasized, it is not as strong as Spell Disintegration, which will be available in the next season. As such, I would advise most players to keep stacking your cold coin, and that is even if you rely on mages. If you want to get a magic tower knowledge skill as your first skill, then I would recommend waiting for Spell Disintegration and actually max that as season 3, which is pretty doable. That being said, Storm Eye is an excellent skill and one that you will eventually want to get, especially if you're running mages. For the other new skill, Siren's Gaze, It's an interesting one which I've never really seen in play for real. However, that doesn't mean that it's bad just because no one's really using it. I think that it's probably not amongst the absolute best skills in the game, but if it was just straight up available, I would certainly be using it. I can see some specialized builds making very good use of the skill, for instance, in combination with skills like Void Realm and Lifelink, you know, pumping a tank up for some amazing control. We've also got, of course, full coverage. I'm not going to cover that either because we did that season 1. Moving on to the immortals of this SvS season 2, we got Ragnar, like I said, and Matilda. Ragnar is a very powerful immortal and one that most water players are going to want to get. Sorry. If you are maining water and you're not, unless you are actually doing a Dido Rams build to counter physical builds, then you want to get Ragnar ASAP. Any other builds than that gets huge value from Ragnar's synergy with Merlin, and with his unique artifact, you're also going to be boosting up physical damage, making it an excellent combo if you are doing something like Merlin Khan backlines. You can do some quite amazing control setups with water, running wounds from Khan, Merlin for damage, Ragnar for buffs, and Attila for damage and control. So go get him if you're doing water. Matilda is an odd duck, to be honest. Her ability itself is quite powerful, but she has proven rather difficult to make work in most endgame builds, especially wind builds. She can't be used in many hybrid builds. I've seen Firewall Matilda, Trajan, Hippo work quite well. Likewise, Water, Merlin, Matilda, Ragnar, Attila can work pretty well. Again, an interesting control build. In Wind, however, I fear that she comes up a bit short, because you need a backline damage from either Atalanta or Baldwin. You don't really have enough frontline damage, especially since Saladin is quite terrible. So what you probably want to do is run something like Atalanta or Baldwin. I personally prefer Atalanta, and then you need the kin wounds and buff effect. That makes her kind of obsolete for wind, but very interesting for hybrid builds. As for the King of the Hill progression, Season 2 offers 2 new immortals. The roster's gonna expand. You get Hammurabi, as well as Arash. Hammurabi is excellent for lightning setups. He pumps massive magic damage, however he is also quite squishy. But if you build it right, then he can do insane amounts of damage, especially if you're not up against someone with extreme backline pressure. If you are, then running something like absolute defense and making sure that you have a lot of dots and debuffs on your enemy makes this guy a very powerful mortal. On the contrary, Arash should be entirely ignored. I'm not even going to spend time on him. I think he is useless at anything other than attacking bosses. Moving on to Season 3. In Season 3, the Cold Shop will offer Snipe, Stormeye like last, but also Spell Disintegrator. Spell Disintegration, like I said the last time, is probably the biggest reward of this season, and one that you have, many have been waiting for the first, second season. So this is a big deal. We're gonna go into more depth with that. For the Ancient Chests, you get Snipe, Stormeye, Siren's Gaze, Spell Disintegrator, full coverage, we know those, and the new one is Victorious Pursuit. For Immortals, you're gonna get Yi Sun Shin, as well as Trajan. For the tower, these new tower knowledge skills, like I said, Spell Disintegrator is the biggest reward of SvS, this SvS Season 3, and maybe the biggest reward you are going to get throughout the first 3 seasons. If you are running a fire team, This is insane. Any mage team, you can also be running Shadow, or you can be doing stuff with Hammurabi, who you unlock now as well. You want Spell Disintegrator there. It is an absolute massive skill, and one that anyone reliant on magic damage needs to unlock ASAP. In addition to that one, the other new skill was Victorious Pursuit. That's an interesting skill. While it's also not really being used a lot, I do see that it has use cases in certain builds. The problem with the skill is getting a high enough count of damage instances for it to do its stacking buff. However, once you do actually get all the buff stacks, you can get 10 stacks of this 5% buff, adding 50% damage, which is a massive buff. Problem is, of course, triggering it quickly and reliable, which means that you are going to have to look at the actual trigger condition, which is you need to deal damage with an ultimate skill. That means that it could be quite massive but only for a very select few immortals. Immortals that are running high energy regen builds, but also immortals that have a lot of damage instances with their ultimate skills. This could be the only immortal that I actually think this is a very good skill on is Hippolyta. With her unique artifact especially, and in an energy regen build, she is going to deal a lot of damage with her ultimate ability. Gilgamesh could also proc it, perhaps, but that is to be proven. For the immortals, we've got Trajan, also a huge deal, and you're probably starting to notice a trend here. All the massive rewards are fire. With the SvS, we're kind of continuing along the line that low to mid spenders are going to get very good rewards from. Before it was the contention of relics, where you unlocked, that was actually entirely free to play, but you unlocked all the powerful fire models. Now with SvS, we're getting a lot of cheap, even free if you play it right, rewards also for fire. Trajan being one of the keys. Last season we got Xeon, now we're getting Spell Disintegrator, and we're getting Trajan. That means that we've finished building up the core for a fire main team, a fire team that can actually it can actually kill the biggest whales. If you are not a giant whale yourself, I encourage anyone to run these types of fire builds. Trajan's power comes from the fact that his ultimate is stackable, so you should notice that. You're quickly going to get stacks on your fire immortals, basically because you're running crit builds either way, and you have native high crit and a fire dragon that helps you out, so you are getting a lot of stacks for massive crit and crit damage. Yi Sun-jin, like with previous seasons, a mediocre to not very powerful immortal. I haven't seen anyone actually do something valuable with this guy. There are some players that swear he has a use, but I have yet to see that in action. I think he is neglectable and should be ignored by everyone. For the King of the Hill progression, you are getting your last unlock. Season 3 is the last season that unlocks an immortal for the King of the Hill progression, or King of the Hill roster, with Atalanta. She's also quite a massive deal for all of your wins. If you're a wind main, then this finishes up a strong setup where you actually rely on physical damage, which is, in my opinion, slightly better than the Baldwin build. So now you can actually do Kin Atalanta, King Arthur. Later you want to run Toyotomi, but you're gonna get him in a later season, as well as Hannibal Barca, of course. This is a powerful setup for wind. It's not entirely finished, since you do need Toyotomi, but this build will perform quite well. So now you can run, now in Season 3 you can actually rely on a wind main. That concludes the first 3 seasons of SvS, Legion of Frostborne. As you continue on, you will be tossed into the Conquest seasons, Conquest P1 Phase 1, and then Conquest P2 Phase 2, etc. What this means is that you are now placed in the Conquest battle group, where all Conquest servers are. Means that migration to every single server in the game is now possible, and it also means that you are going to be matched against more powerful servers. You can be matched against any of the old servers as well as the biggest servers in the game. For rewards in Conquest P1, the cold currency shop still has Sniper, Stormwire, Spell Disintegrator, but now also Wind Rage ability stones. As for the Ancient Remnant loot boxes, we've got all the stuff we used to have, but also, of course, Wind Rage, the new ability in shop, as well as Berserker ability stones. For Immortals, we are unlocking Louis, as well as Toyotomi. Toyotomi, the Wind Immortal, I spoke of before, more on that later. For these new Tower of Knowledge skills, the new one we had was Wind Rage in the shop. Wind Rage is a highly valued skill for many setups, and in certain setups it can provide quite ridiculous value. For instance, running a well-crafted Alex build, Alexander the Great build, you can get very high value from this passive. Stacking it in an attack speed build works extremely well, and stacking it with other stuff that relies on normal attack damage, as for instance trigger conditions. Think back to my guide on passive skills and triggered skills. You have skills like Combo, Cleave, Heavily Thunder that trigger off of normal attacks, and this is just gonna be massive for that. As for our ancient chests reward, we've got Berserker available. Berserker is the by far the most nerfed skill of any in Infinity Kingdom, since the skill was originally released, or well, at least the numbers were. It wasn't actually out by then. It wasn't available, but the text was in. Since then, it has been nerfed 3-4 times, and by massive amounts. However, it does still remain a quite powerful passive, which in certain situations will provide very high value. It should be used on an immortal with unique artifact effects, making their ability into a passive, because you are losing the ability to, you're not going to really regen energy fast enough to make any value out of your ultimates unless they are made into passives. So for instance, an Alexander or a Hannibal Barker is going to have high value from this one. For another note you should see is that no longer activates any trigger type skills, so you can't really stack this with Wind Rage and Combo, for instance. But what you can do is stack it with just plain damage, and it's something that I'm looking forward to be doing for my Hannibal Barker in my Wind Earth hybrid when I eventually get this skill a couple seasons ahead, because it takes ages since it's in Ancient Remnant boxes. But excited. For the Immortals, we're getting Louis. Louis is a quite decent immortal. It's a fine addition to the Lightning roster and a pretty interesting immortal. It's the only frontline damage immortal that actually deals magic damage, which means that you can get some value out of those magic passives that you may not be using. If you are running physical heavy like most in the current meta is, then you have 1 or 2 mages across all of your 3 marches, which provides problem, which gives you a problem of actually using magic passives well. Well, Louis can help solve that. Furthermore, he's really great paired with Hammurabi, which means that for a second or a third, you can now do a double mage lightning and still have Khan in there for wounds. He deals solid damage and is certainly better than Richard, but if you do not have the Spearman technology, he can also be an excellent replacement for Peter. That is how I'm using it, because I don't have any Spearman tech. I'm not using spears for anything, so I had a problem running Lightning, since I would be relying on Peter's Spearman. But with Louis, you kind of get over that hurdle and can use cavalry. The second immortal is also a quite big release. It's Toyotomi. He's probably the most underrated immortal of all time, at least one of them. He's excellent, although not many players actually realize it, but he is amazing for wind physical counter setups. You know, you can do some awesome builds with this guy. He completes the dodge build for wind, and as you will now be able to run Atalanta, Kin, Barca, and Toyotomi. This composition is very powerful against physical setup, because you can stack dodge to quite insane degrees with misleading after image, stuff like that. And in the current meta, which is physically dominated by physical setups, then this is quite amazing. Just be aware that dodge is terrible. Well, it has absolutely no effect against magic setups. So if you are fighting a lot of Merlin Waters or Dual Mage Fires, that kind of thing, this build is not very good. But for fighting Earths and especially Holies, then this build works very, very well. For King of the Hill progression, like I said, Season 3 ended the King of the Hill roster, completed the roster, so you are not going to get any more immortals unlocked with Conquest. That moves us to the last one, Conquest P2. By this point, your rewards are complete. You get the same items in the coin shop. Snipe, Stormeye, Spell Disintegrator, and Wind Rage. It's the same things as with Conquest P1. For the Ancient Remnant boxes, you also get the same abilities: Snipe, Stormeye, Siren, Spell Disintegrator, Full Coverage, Victorious Pursuit, Wind Rage, Berserker. All the same stuff as in Conquest P1. However, the immortals are different. You're gonna unlock 2 new immortals in P2, Phase 2. Tokugawa for Lightning and Margaret the First for Water. So for the Tower Knowledge skills, we've covered all of them, so I'm not really going to mention anything about those, and instead just move straight on to the immortals of this Conquest P2. Tokugawa is a very interesting immortal. I don't have him myself yet, which is terrible, because I really want this guy. You know, receiving 10% more damage and dealing 10% less damage while having a 10% lower energy. You know, he's doing both damage buffs and damage debuffs, and energy regen debuffs, attack speed debuffs. It's some massive debuffs that I think can really move mountains if done right. I think he's a very interesting immortal, and someone who will be quite powerful when he is released, but not for everyone. I know that I'm gonna unlock him as soon as I can. I migrated away from the newest Conquest seasons to a younger server, so I won't be getting him until next season, but I will be getting him as quickly as I possibly can. I think that he does have high value against physical teams and the physical meta, since his shield absorbs physical damage, as well as provides some very powerful debuffs, especially against these attack speed physical centric setups that we've seen lately. Critically, he will counter the meta hybrid wind team because of the 10% reduced attack speed and the 10% reduced damage taken. Makes Alex a wet noodle, to be honest. He does have one weakness: magic damage. His shield absorbs physical damage, and again, if you're up against a fire, dual mage fire, strong water Merlin builds, then this guy's gonna be a paperweight. but a very interesting immortal overall, and one that I will certainly be getting. Contrary to this, Margaret is not a very interesting immortal. She seems to be a slightly better Yoshi, and she probably is, but her energy regen is so horrible that it makes her kind of obsolete, to be honest. There could be a window where she could outperform Dido if she actually had access to Chill, but she doesn't. She relies on Chill, and as such she can only compete with Merlin, which she just can't do well enough. So for this current sort of version of Margaret, I think she should be neglected. That concludes Conquest P2, because like with P1, we're not going to get King of the Hill. That was finished in Season 3. That is also all of the seasons that I have for you in this video. Conquest P3 should be the precise same rewards as Conquest P2. If anyone finds that Conquest P4 has different rewards, something like that, hit me up, but that is all of the rewards that you're going to get throughout each and every single season of Legion of Frostborne SvS. And that's it for this video. See ya, and thank you for watching. As always, please do subscribe to the channel. I consistently release new content here on the IK channel and on the official IK Wiki website. Links are in the description. On these channels you can find guides from everything in IK, from events to talents, passives, finished builds and game mechanics. With that, I'm gonna leave you, and as always, thank you for watching and see you for the next one.